Hello, everybody. I'm Joe Grace, coming to you from the mesquite-riddled plains of northwest Texas, just south of the mighty Red and the great state of Oklahoma. I'm glad to be with you today. It's Tuesday, April the 29th. April the 29th. The month of May is knocking on our door, and it wants to come inside. For those of you up north, you're probably excited about it because you finally get to thaw out. And for those of us in the south, look, summer comes with a lot of perks, no doubt. But it also means 5 to 6 months of, at times, unbearable heat. So May is almost here, and then, of course, official summertime in June. Who's not excited? It's a great time to be alive. And I can't complain about the heat too much because this part of the world is affectionately known as God's country, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So thanks for joining today. We've got a lot to get into. I'm going to hit on some current events. And then I've got a story I want to share at the end that I think will encourage you tremendously. But before we begin, I want to tell you, just a month or so ago, I picked up this book at the bookstore. It's Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. Many of you have probably already read it. It is, as I was told, a classic, and I'm finding out why it's a classic. It's a fantastic book. It basically gives you insight into the mind of C.S. Lewis, one of the great writers. And he does a great job going through the basics of Christianity. I'll probably do a kind of an abbreviated book review here in a couple weeks. I'm almost done. I don't know if you can tell where my bookmark is, but we're about 80% of the way through this one. And then, hey, I am taking recommendations on the next book. I've done a little bit better this year about trying to read through some books. And so if you've got a recommendation for me, leave it in the comments and let me know. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy the show. If you're getting anything from it, I'm so glad to have you. It means a lot to me. Well, let's dive in. Up first, did you know that the United States and the United Kingdom are involved in a military campaign in Yemen right now? You probably had heard, maybe in the news, and I had too, but until last night, I was not aware to what degree we were involved and how much action we have going on over there in Yemen. The United States and the United Kingdom continue airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. Now, this campaign began January 12th, 2024, so that's in the Biden administration, in response to Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping. Since then, the U.S. and the U.K. have conducted at least, check this out, 931 strikes, with the U.S. alone executing over 800 additional strikes since March 15th, 2025, under Operation Rough Rider. Now, if you're like me, you're probably wondering, what in the world? Who are the Houthis? Why are we involved? Why are we spending this kind of money, putting lives at risk? What is going on? Well, the Houthis, formerly known as Ansar Allah, are a Shia Islamist group from northern Yemen, and they were founded in the 1990s. It says they control much of Yemen, including the capital, and are backed by Iran. So there's kind of the first insight. Anyone connected with Iran, it's always going to be one of the, at the top of the list of enemies to the United States and the West. Since December of 2023, check this out, this group, this rebel group, I'm going to call it, the Houthis, have attacked over 90 commercial vessels in the Red Sea, sinking 2 and damaging 30, claiming solidarity with Palestinians but disrupting global trade. Now, the U.S. and U.K. aim to degrade Houthi military capabilities, protect shipping lanes, and counter Iranian influence. Now, despite these efforts, Houthi attacks persist, and major shipping companies continue to avoid the Red Sea, increasing global trade costs. Now, when I first read up on this yesterday, I honestly was a little bit perturbed about the fact that the United States is pushing buttons and bombing the crap out of another country that I know very little about. I didn't know we had that big of an issue in the Red Sea or with this group called the Houthis, but apparently we do. But the more I thought about it, I guess I'm going to have to trust my government right now. And And to a certain degree, I can't blame them. If there is a group of people in the world that is disrupting our ability to buy and sell and trade and is purposely attempting to do damage to our goods and services and in the Red Sea, and we've told them you need to back up, you need to cut this out, and they don't, something's got to give. And for right now, the United States has determined that the best course of action is to go after their leadership. And my only hope is that this doesn't turn into another, and it sounds like it already is, but another point of emphasis where the United States is showing its force and power from a distance, and people in the Middle East will continue to have hatred towards the West because of these situations that most of the civilians and the citizens, in my opinion, have very little control over. But who am I? I'm not an expert on the Middle East. I just can't believe we've sent that many airstrikes to Yemen of late. Moving on, this one blows my mind. FBI arrests a Wisconsin judge. In Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the FBI arrested Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan on charges of obstruction of justice. Dugan allegedly helped an undocumented immigrant, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, evade ICE agents at her courthouse. Flores Ruiz was in court for domestic assault charges after reportedly attacking a roommate and a woman who intervened. According to the FBI, Dugan learned ICE agents were waiting to detain Flores Ruiz. She expressed frustration and escorted him and his lawyer out a non-public jury door, preventing his arrest. Now, folks, this is unbelievable to me. I did a little bit more digging on Mr. Ruiz, only to discover that many years ago he had come here undocumented, illegally, and we had already picked him up and deported him, and he had since snuck back into the United States. Okay, so he's already here, unwilling to go through the proper channels, and then he gets arrested for beating the crap out of a roommate. And this judge has an issue with ICE showing up to arrest and obviously deport him. I don't understand what goes through people's minds or what they think is happening here, but it's absolutely incredible to me that we have people, influential people and leaders in our country that don't understand the basic common sense that if you're not here legally, then you've already broken the law. That's it. All the heartstrings and the sad sob stories about people and families being divided and separated and problems coming from deporting all these people. It's asinine, to say the least, that we still have such an issue with forcing people to follow our laws when they want to come to the United States of America. Now on to page 2. Drama in the NFL. Oh, you'll love this. Most of you watched over the weekend as Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, who was expected to be drafted most likely in the first round, and some actually expected him to go in the top 5. He fell through multiple rounds, with reports citing concerns about his attitude and leadership. And the unexpected drop was a major talking point, not only around the league, but in the sports world in general. Listen, I'm torn with this one. By the way, he was finally selected by the Cleveland Browns, who already have a whole bevy of quarterbacks, and young quarterbacks at that. So it should be interesting to see if Shedeur even gets any playing time, or if he's traded, or what's going to happen there in Cleveland. But I'm torn because, look, I like Deion Sanders. I like what he's done as a coach. I loved watching him play, especially for my beloved Dallas Cowboys back in the 90s. He was incredible, and I think he's a great influence for a lot of young men. But something happened, especially last season, with Shedeur Sanders and Colorado. It was kind of lost on me when he started showing up at pre-games and flashing his Rolex or his watches to the crowd and kind of flaunting himself and his status in a way that it didn't make a lot of sense to many of us, because it's not like Colorado was going to win the national championship or even most likely make the playoffs, but yet he was pretending as though he was, the next coming of Roger Staubach or one of the greats. I just don't understand that. And my gut instinct tells me that between him and Deion Sanders, whom I really like, I think that general managers and owners around the league had tremendous reservations about spending a lot of money up front on Shedeur Sanders. Now, the beautiful thing to me about this story is that because he fell so far, I believe he fell all the way down to round number 5. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. But because he fell so far, now he's kind of an underdog, and I can get behind him again. He's got something to prove. Hopefully he's got a chip on his shoulder, and so we'll see how all of that turns out. I've got nothing but best wishes for him and his NFL career. Staying in the sports world, the Philadelphia Eagles visited the White House. It's traditional that the Super Bowl champions make an official visit to the White House, and of course they're hosted. I believe this was yesterday or the day before. It was really cool seeing running back Saquon Barkley. I think he even spent time playing some golf with President Trump. It seemed like they hit it off really, really well. And obviously, if you remember some time back, there was a whole controversy between the NFL and Donald Trump and some comments that he made. And so his past stint at the White House, one team decided basically not to even show up to this event. And so I think we've come a long way from that because the majority of the Eagles players, or a lot of them, did make the trip. Now, notably, quarterback Jalen Hurts did not attend. He cited a schedule conflict, and I hope that's truly all that it was. I hope it wasn't anything more, but hey, it is what it is. Finally, I wanted to talk briefly about Canada. I don't spend much time thinking about the country to our north, not nearly as much as I do about the one to the south. But Canada just elected its next prime minister, a gentleman by the name of Mark Carney. Now, just doing a brief history check on Mr. Carney, it's obvious that he's a finance guy. Most of his jobs, his career has been in the world of finance, and he's served in extremely high positions. A former Bank of England governor. The other note I noticed is that Carney is a husband and a father, and played sports growing up, and yet he really pushes the liberal agenda. And so I always wonder, is he actually a liberal at heart, or is he a normal dude that leans left so that he can get enough votes to get elected and to get along? I don't know. I do know this, and I didn't look into it much more than just a brief read, but apparently he's either planning on or has already eliminated the Minister of Women and Gender Equality from his cabinet. And that apparently has stirred some people up a little bit. I love it. If it was a move on his part to kind of take a stand and say, hey, look, I'm not going to play those types of games, and I'm not going to be beholden to people that tell me how to think about equality and all this other mess that we find ourselves in the West constantly, then kudos to him. But something tells me that's not the case. It may have been something far more personal regarding that move on his part. Now, finally, I want to move along to a story of encouragement, one that I had heard many times over the years and has always been meaningful to me to hear about people who have overcome and done incredible things. And so I want to talk to you about a young boy who was born into a world of order and opportunity, and yet he was drawn to chaos. A child of privilege who by his teens was a thief, a liar, a gambler, and he defied his family and the law. Now, who was this young man? And what would possibly become of such a rebel? Well, stay with me, because his story defies all expectations. The young boy was born on September 27th, 1805, in the Kingdom of Prussia, which is now Germany. His father, Johann, a tax collector, provided a comfortable life. And despite a stable upbringing, the young boy rebelled at an early age. By the age of 10, he was pilfering coins, lying and dodging his strict religious upbringing. And by 14, he was drinking and gambling. And at the age of 16, he was forging receipts and swindling, eventually landing in prison for fraud at 16 years old. A few years later, that's when everything changed. In November 1825, at the age of 20, the young man attended a Christian house meeting where he encountered a faith that would transform him. It was at this Bible study or this meeting that he committed his life to God, and everything began to change. The young man moved to England in 1829, where he saw thousands of orphans starving, and he and his wife Mary opened their home to 30 orphan girls in 1836. Relying solely on prayer and never asking for donations, this man built 5 orphanages, caring for over 10,000 children in his lifetime. His influence didn't stop there. He founded 117 schools. He educated more than 120,000 children and distributed nearly 2 million Bibles. He preached in 42 countries, addressing over 3 million people, funded entirely through unsolicited donations, equivalent to today's money of $180 million. From a Prussian thief to a guardian of thousands, the man you probably know is George Mueller. And his life proves that no one is beyond redemption, and it's never too late. I hope that encourages you today to take the rest of this week, give it to God, and allow Him to work through your life. Be blessed, and we'll see you either later on Thursday or Friday, or if not, next Tuesday once again.